Hey, it's Paige DeSorbo from Giggly Squad. High quality fashion without the price tag. Say hello to Quince. I'm snagging high-end essentials like cozy cashmere sweaters, sleek leather jackets, fine jewelry, and so much more. With Quince being 50 to 80% less than similar brands. And they partner with factories that prioritize safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing. I love that. Luxury quality within reach. Go to quince.com/style to get free shipping and 365-day returns on your next order. Quince.com/style.
Wow.
Nice.
Yeah.
What you're hearing are the sounds of people everywhere putting on Bombas socks, underwear, and T-shirts made from absurdly soft materials that feel like plush clouds. Yeah, that plush. And the best part? For every item you purchase, Bombas donates another to someone facing homelessness.
Bombas. Big comfort for everyone. Go to bombas.com/ACAST and use code ACAST for 20% off your first purchase. That's bombas.com/ACAST. Code ACAST.
Hello, you are listening to Just Films and That. This is the podcast where we talk about films we think deserve a little bit more love. Whether they're underrated or underseen, we're going to talk about them. So, let's see what it is this week. Hello, as I said there, welcome to Just Films and That. I'm the host for this week, Josh Hallam, and I'm joined, as ever, by my wonderful co-host, Alice Oliver. Alice, how you doing?
One last time.
Here it is.
This is it, Josh. Get the
This
violins.
is it. It is, yes. So if you hadn't been following not the plot, there's no plot, but if you haven't been following the so basically Alice is going off to have a baby, aren't you?
Oh, everyone.
We can hear them. And this is the last one before she goes off to have a baby. She will be coming back, we hope. Just, we don't know when, just whenever. Well, whenever you're ready.
Yeah, whenever my brain switches back on, I think.
Yeah, indeed. So she will be coming back. So this week we are bidding adieu or au revoir for now to Alice. And because I'm kind, even though it was my turn to pick, I can't remember, I let Alice choose the film.
Ooh,
so
that's two in a row for me. Eh?
Indeed.
Ooh.
So Alice, we'll do your send off a little bit at the end. However, tell the guys at home, I Love You Man from 2009. That's what we're talking about. If you can't tell from the episode title. Spoiler ones if you've not seen it. Alice, tell the guys at home briefly what I Love You Man's about, but more importantly, why did you pick it for the podcast?
I Love You Man. So Paul Rudd is a fella, and he hasn't really got many friends, Josh. He's a bit of a lonely guy, but he didn't really notice until he got engaged, and then obviously they start putting the guest list together, and his
before he met the Avengers.
Yeah, exactly, right. He was like, who am I going to invite to the wedding? And his fiance's, asking, like, oh, who's going to be your best man? Who's coming to the wedding and all this? And he's like, nah, don't really have any mates. Never even really noticed that this was a thing. So then he starts thinking, well, I need to meet someone now then to become my best man. So it feels like he hasn't even got anyone in his life already who he could ask that of. So he needs to try and make new friends in his early 30s. Fucking nightmare that. I really sympathise with you. Yeah. Paul Rudd. What's his character's name again?
Peter.
I always forget. Peter. Pistol Pete. Of course, Pistol Pete. So the film sort of starts off, it's about him, where do you meet people? How do you meet people? He looks to his brother for help. He thinks maybe, am I going to find this person at work? It just doesn't work out. And then when he's doing a open house for Lou Ferrigno's house, and who should walk in but Sidney Fife, Jason Segel. Segel? Jason Segel?
Seagal, I think it is.
Segel. And
Seagull in Britain, I think it's called.
And he totally changes his life, and he takes Pete on a journey of friendship, of love, of all these wonderful things. And it ends up with him being the best man at his wedding. And the film ends with them saying, I love you to each other in so many different ways. And it's really cute. It's sort of, typical kind of Paul Rudd, Jason Segel, okay, but then everyone, all the comedy actors of the sort of late 2000s are in there. You literally recognise everyone. I forgot Andy Samberg was in this. So he plays Pete's brother. He's great. And it's just a bit of fun, Josh. It's just a bit of it's a bit of a jolly. It's a sort of nice time. I don't really think it's underrated or underseen, to be
No.
honest. I just kind of wanted to chat about it. I was like, what could I pick for my last film? What's going to be just like quite enjoyable to watch, going to sort of ease me into these last couple of weeks of pregnancy. You know, I didn't want anything too intense or anything that's going to put me too on edge. So I was like, let's go for something mellow. And I love you, Matt. It's pretty mellow. It's pretty mellow.
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair to say. It's pretty mellow. So, in that case, then, just to confirm, you've chosen it not because it's underrated, not because it's underseen. You just wanted to talk about it, but we'll still follow that same format anyway.
Of course. Had you seen this one before?
I had seen it before. Yeah, I think I saw it. Didn't see it in the cinema,
one.
but I saw it when it came out on the old DVD.
Oh yeah.
So when it probably just after it first came out. So I remember watching this. I remember enjoying this, and I remember almost immediately forgetting everything about it.
Yeah.
You know, apart from the plot, I think the time it came out was quite the boom for this sort of comedy where you take a concept, you fill it with all those sort of Apatow world type actors, like, you know, you think of your knocked ups, your 40-year-old virgins, your super bads, you know, this, and the list goes on and on. Now, I don't think this is anything to do with Apatow, but it is around that time, isn't it? So the role models is another one. They all sort of blend into one another, forgetting Sarah Marshall, you know, all these different films, they all blend into one another. But I had seen it before, and I remember thinking, yes, you know, it's fine, it's funny, but just apart from the plot, just being like, immediately forgot it. But anyway, let's jump in then. Let's jump into talking about it. So, as we do normally, we start with what we liked about it. So go on then, Alice. What did you like about, having watched it again, what did you like about it?
I think it's quite an easy film to watch, right? It's pretty low stakes. Nothing too big or dramatics happening. It's not difficult to follow. Some of the dialogue is pretty witty and is really enjoyable. A lot of the characters are really funny as well. And obviously the chemistry between Paul Rudd and Jason, I'm just going to call him Jason because I'm really not 100% sure. I love him,
Segal,
right?
I think it is.
And I'm really not 100% sure how you actually say his name, because it's Segel. Like Seagull. I don't think it is A-L.
Oh,
no,
is it?
I'm looking at it right now on Google, you know. so it's unclear, right? So we'll just call him Jason. So they've got great chemistry, and obviously they've been in a few films together already, like you say. They've got great comedic timing with one another. They're so effortless. Like they don't really ever look like they're acting too hard. Paul Rudd in this especially, so Pistol Pete, as Sydney calls him, he just feels so natural and authentic and relatable. And I think the journey that he goes on in this film is pretty relatable as well. Like trying to make friends at that age is pretty daunting, especially when you're approaching it from a place of, oh, I need to make a friend. It's not really, like, it's not organic. It's not just happening. So obviously you meet people at school and you just become friends, or you meet people at work and because you're in the same environment, you just become friends or whatever. But for him, it's like dating. It's like he's on a dating app and he's like, I need to go out and find friends because, oh God, I've just realized I have no friends, sort of thing. And I really empathize with that and how difficult and awkward that can be. And it is really awkward. And he is so awkward as well. Like some of the shit that comes out of his mouth, like you can see why it's been difficult for him to forge, I think, meaningful relationships with other men. Because he does have female friends and he does get along with women, it seems, a lot easier than he does with men. So I really like the journey. And I think he and Sydney, they balance off really nicely. Like they bring something so different to the table. Like Sydney's a little bit chaotic. He's a little bit, not gross. I feel like that's a bit, he's got no filter. Like, oh no, actually, you know what? He is gross because he doesn't pick up the dog shit that his dog drops off every now and then. And I don't like that. That's the one thing I don't like about that character. But apart from that, really likable. So I think it's pretty funny. I think it's got a great soundtrack. It's kind of the sort of thing, exactly what you'd expect from a film like this at that time. Like every other song is a bop. And I found it's just easy to watch, man. Like it was just kind of what I needed at this time.
A Sunday afternoon type film.
It was exactly it. It's exactly it. And something else that I noticed this time around, actually, that I hadn't really noticed before, because I had seen this film quite a lot, like when it first came out. So something happened, right? So when I went to uni, I had like this really old laptop that was given to me by someone, but it couldn't connect to the internet, right? But what did I do? So what someone did for me was they put a few films that they had downloaded onto a memory stick. I then took the memory stick, put it in this old laptop, and took the films off. And there was about 4 or 5 different films on there, right? And I just watched them over and over and over again because I couldn't watch anything else, right? Because I couldn't connect to the internet. And this was one of those films. So I watched it quite a lot in a very short space of time, but then I hadn't watched it again for many, many years. Anyway, yeah, what I noticed this time around actually is how sort of quite quietly and secretly dysfunctional Pete is. I don't know if you noticed this at all or whatever, but when we go into some of the detail around, so he proposes to his girlfriend, Rashida Jones,
at work,
whose character's name escapes me.
I can't
again.
remember Rashida Jones's character, but yeah. He proposes to her at work, which is obviously what every woman dreams of.
Was it at work?
At
Did
his
he
work.
Not take her to?
He takes her to a place.
Site.
Well, yeah, he takes her to a site.
Yeah, because he's he's a realtor, sorry, I think what they call them in America. So he proposes to her. They're 8 months into their relationship, right? And he's proposed to her. So that's to each their own, Josh. Everyone can live their life however they want. That's a bit quick, though.
I'll say it, Alice, that's too fast.
It's a bit fast. It's a bit fast.
In my opinion, everyone dances to their own tune. That's too quick.
It is too quick, isn't it? And I think for us now, especially, and you definitely, but obviously I've been with Ollie for over 9 years now. You've been with your partner for 15 years, yeah.
And I've not proposed. I'm waiting to see if it works out.
Yeah. Just 5 more years.
Yeah, it's at 20 years. You really break the back of this thing and get to know each other.
That's when you really get to know someone, right? That's when they've really shown their true colours. But I feel like when and this isn't to this is not anything against anyone's relationships or whatever. The crazy things happen and that's great. But when you've been with someone that long and you see sort of how much each other changes over that time, how the dynamic of the relationship changes, all the things you go through together as a couple. So when you see someone proposing to someone at 8 months, it's like, oh, fuck. Like, you don't know shit about that person.
Because also, they appear to be living together.
So when did that happen?
Like, how long have they been living together? Like, for a couple of months? A month?
Yeah.
That's mad.
Weeks. Yeah.
You don't even know yet. Like, what if they stack the dishwasher wrong?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? What if they have weird habits? Or habits that everyone's got weird habits. What habits you can't live with?
Yeah, exactly. What if, because the whole, the whole thing about building a foundation for a relationship and all that sort of thing is like going through like these monumental things together, like you go through crisis together and how do you figure that out sort of thing. But when you're 8 months in, it's sort of, a lot of the time it's all just been nice.
That's not even a full calendar year to get to know how they act at every event through the year.
Yeah, exactly.
What if the timing's off and you don't know that at Christmas they're a proper prick?
Yeah, exactly.
Do you know what I mean? Like, what if you got together in February and you don't know that they go a bit mad at Christmas? We're talking multiple trees, presents, like 500 presents, and you're just like in one good present person.
Yeah, and it just you don't gel, right? And it doesn't match. And then, but it's too late because we're already married.
Yeah. And we've got at the very least, we're on the tenancy together.
Yeah, nightmare. So that's a bit like, oh yeah, that is quite fast. And then it turns out that he's already booked like the venue. So he'd already booked the wedding venue before she'd said yes, before he'd even proposed to her. So I was like, well, that's a little bit wacky, mate. That's sort of a really weird thing to do. Then it turns out a bit later on, we find out that he got with her, or he met her at least, the day after he broke up with his previous girlfriend. So he literally had 1 day, so he's had no breathing space to sort of assess, what went wrong, what do I want from life, do I need to work on myself and all this sort of thing. Literally jumped straight back into another relationship. And then his mum reveals that after the first date with her, he came back and phoned her and said, Mum, this is definitely the girl that I'm going to marry. Again, that is an outrageous thing to say when you've met someone like
it's Hollywood
once or
bollocks,
twice.
that, isn't it?
Well, I sort of read it as this is Pete's like dysfunction
He's
coming to
unhealthy.
the surface.
He's a committophile sort of thing.
Yes, exactly. There's something deeper going on with him. And it's not just a case of, oh, whoops, I don't have any friends. Like there is something else going on there. And I think there were too many things that cropped up and too many sort of little nuances about the way that he behaves and sort of responds in certain situations that made me think, oh, I think actually the film is hinting at something here, like a little bit deeper. And I hadn't really paid attention to that before.
Quite interesting though, isn't it? Because there's enough jokes and films and all that sort of stuff about men who can't commit.
Yeah.
And then you got a film here about a guy who commits too much, or in certain senses. I think it's quite interesting. I think the real strength of the film, go back to what you're talking about there, is that the concept of the film is fairly, it's not standard, but it's fairly simple, right? But the way it succeeds is by injecting it through this prism, through this vein of what if meeting friends was like dating? Because without that, it's nothing. With all that awkward humor of meeting guys, going on guy dates, going on, friendship days and all that, then you have that awkwardness of, well, we all know what it's doing. We all know it's going, well, what if being friends with someone was like dating? So it's basically all parts of a relationship without the, whatever you want to call it, the sexual, the romantic part, whatever, of a relationship. So I thought that was really interesting, but you are right. He is, there's some real holes in there and he is a real dysfunctional character. I mean, on one hand, you could take this as an examination of a really quite unhealthy person in that sense and take the jokes out of it and make it an art house indie film.
Well, and that is kind of how I read it a bit this time around as well. It's just like, because at first viewing, when I first sort of watched it years ago, you do just think like, oh yeah, just cute little rom-com, oh yeah, they met and now they're engaged and everything's great and all this. But then all these little things start coming out about Pete and I was just like, oh, this doesn't sound like super healthy behaviour, mate.
Yeah.
Like you sound like there's something deeper going on there. And I thought that was interesting and I appreciated reading it in that different way and sort of having that different viewing experience this time around. What were your overall thoughts then? Like, did you like it?
Yeah, no, I do. I think it's fine. I think overall it's a fairly well balanced. It's like you say, it's low stakes. It's switch your brain off. It's gentle. It's fairly gentle, and I think that's something that's good. There is a place for these sorts of films, these sorts of gentle conceptual comedies. So I think it's fairly well balanced. It's fairly feel good. It's got some good ideas in there. It's pretty easy watching. It's not perfect, but it's easy watching and it's gentle. Like we said, I think there's a really good balance of comedy and feel good rather than just focusing on comedy. It's a bit of both. I think it's got some good ideas in there about the other side of what you're talking about before with Paul Rudd's character Peter is that, something is missing for him. There's a sort of little hole in his jigsaw, whether it's a hole in his heart or his soul, whatever you want to call it. And the film sort of does a good job, I think, of exploring that through that idea of male bonding and male friendship and finding a little piece of yourself in a non-romantic, positive way. Bonding with friends is as important in many ways as bonding with your partner. You may not have the same partner throughout your life, but quite often you will have the same friends, or you'll build friends and not build friends, not Frankenstein. You'll gain friends and lose friends and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, it's pretty funny. Like I say, it's quite gentle, but it's it's a chuckler. You just sort of chuckle into yourself as it goes along. Good awkward humor. What I do like is around this time, so when I'm talking about a lot of those other films we mentioned before, they fall really into the trap of they take an idea, they cast the actors, and then they shoot the actors who riff and riff and riff and riff and riff and riff, and then they throw it all together in the edit, right? Which works really well. But as you watch that sort of, it's not a movement of films, it's not Dogma 95, but if you watch the progression of those films from sort of your 40-year-old virgin onwards, obviously, let's take it as read. Some of those films haven't aged that well in the language around certain things, so that's fine. But I'm not talking about that. But they have this idea of they shoot the actors and they let them talk, and then it comes together in the edit later. Now, I think it works really well earlier on. If you look at the 40-year-old virgin, I think it aging aside, I think it works really, really well. But then as it gets sort of 5, 6, 7 years later, you get these films with these really long takes, and quite often the actors aren't natural comedians or they're not natural improvisers or whatever. And you just get these big, long sections of dialogue, and there are certain ones that I have switched off. So I have never finished The Interview, the James Franco, Seth Rogen one. Same as Bad Neighbours. It's nothing against the actors or the team or anything like that, but I just remember watching it being like, it's just the same thing. They're just shooting these conversations of riffy, quippy, improvisational, semi-improvisational dialogue, and it's just not landing because they're giving them too much rope. You need to cut that down. You need to make it, you need to keep me, for me, more engaged. This film doesn't do that. So I think it must have quite a tight script, but also the actors that do most of that, like if they are doing it, so Jason Segel, Paul Rudd, are comedians, and the supporting cast. The only one who I think is not a comedian or a comedian actor, first and foremost, is probably Rashida Jones, and even she really cut her teeth in Parks and Recreation, so maybe she is, I don't know. I just know that, they particularly have done that that sort of stuff. So I thought that worked really well. Really does get a lot of colour from the supporting cast, like you've said. So Paul Rudd and Jason Segel and Rashida Jones are all really, really great. I really like Rashida Jones. I think she's one of the most underrated parts of Parks and Rec. If you've not seen it, she's great in it. She's actually written a film that's on my list.
Interesting.
Called Celeste and Jesse Forever, which is her and Andy Samberg, and that's an exploration of two people who are, I can't remember, but I think it's that they are friends, but they also get, it's like, why did they never get together, but they're friends sort of thing. I can't remember. I just remember enjoying it and writing it on the list. Anyway, so, you've got, like you say, you've got the who's who of American sitcom actors. So you've got Thomas Lennon in there, Joe Latrulio, who's Boyle from Brooklyn Nine-Nine, obviously Andy Samberg, who's also in Brooklyn Nine-Nine. J.K. Simmons is in there.
John Favreau's
in there. You've got loads of them. There's even ones that's like, oh, that's the guy. So I can't remember the guy who plays his work colleague. I can't remember that guy's name. But he has been labelled, I was reading whilst I was watching the film, he's like the quintessential douchebag actor of his generation.
Is he?
As in, he always plays that dick.
Yeah,
Do you know what I
Tevin.
mean? Tevin. He's really, really good at doing, like, it's a bit like Nick Kroll does it a lot. Nick Kroll, who does Big Mouth, he does a lot of, like, he just plays a prick really, really well. But, there's plenty to like in there. Yeah, plenty to like in there. Okay, so we'll move on then to talking about things that we didn't like or that we change about I Love You, Man. I mean, don't get the impression for you, Alice. Is there much? Is there any things in there? Any apart from the fact he doesn't pick up his dog's poo? Which is, that's bad. But unfortunately, a problem in the real world as well.
Oh, so common. It's outrageous how common it is. So, it is reflective of real life. But yeah, that puts me off that character. Especially because he's like taking him for walks on the beach and stuff, and taking him for walks on like the boulevard and the sort of the coast and all that. Where there's loads of walkers, loads of runners. So every time someone gets pissed off at him for not doing it, I am totally on their side.
But does he give a reason? Does he give a reason?
He does give a reason. Because I know some people say, say in the countryside it's good for the grass, which obviously does make biological sense. But I know. As long as it's off a path.
Yeah.
Like, as long as they're doing it near a hedge or something, then that's not too bad. He says something, he does give a reason, and it is about something like it just not being natural to pick it up. And, it's like, oh, that's where the dog shits, so that's where the dog shits sort of thing. I think it's something along those lines, but he does sort of try and justify it. Other than that, it's a little bit slow in places, Josh. Like it's not really like a laugh a minute, is it? It kind of bobs along quite slowly.
I agree with that.
Especially sort of near the beginning. I did find that I was just waiting for Jason to turn up. Like I was just sort of like,
Dragonheart, but it's Jason Segel.
Exactly like that. Exactly like that. I was just like, oh yeah, this is fine, but let's wait till it really gets going, sort of thing. So it did feel a little bit slow. It's not hysterical. Like, it's
No.
not full on laugh out loud funny. Like you said, you used the word gentle, and I think that's a really good way to describe it. It's like, it's quite gentle humor. It's a gentle story. These characters are pretty gentle. It's all just quite, sort of nice, inoffensive, fairly good jokes, but nothing too extreme and nothing too hilarious. And that was kind of it, though, really. Like, overall, it's just quite an enjoyable experience.
Yeah,
What about
yeah.
you? Anything you don't like or you would change?
There's two main things, and I think that it follows on from what you've said, and they sort of are linked to each other. So the first one is obviously it's a bit by the numbers.
Yeah.
It's just a bit formulaic. It's a bit by the numbers, and because of it being a bit by the numbers, there are a lot of conveniences in there that I think you need to suspend your disbelief for or not think about. And unfortunately, I didn't laugh enough to not think about them. So, for example, there's a thing at the end that obviously the whole thing is he hasn't got any male friends and he needs groomsmen and a best man. So he meets all these characters throughout who he either doesn't get on with, or they don't quite hit it off as friends. And then inexplicably, should I say, at the wedding, most of the characters are there as his groomsmen, right? Which is, I think if it had earned that, I'd be laughing, right? But it just made me go, why would he invite them? Why would he invite the squeaky voice guy from the gym, the guy who unfortunately, misunderstood that it was a date and not a friendship thing, Lou Ferrigno, who's his client at work, and then there's other ones. There's an old guy that he makes friends with. It doesn't really quite work. I mean, would you not just have your dad and your brother?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? You don't need... I mean, maybe this is me accidentally admitting I've got no friends, but if you've got your dad and your brother, do you then need 6 groomsmen? Do you know what I mean?
No,
because surely the wedding is going to be filled with all the people who are going, who are they?
Yeah. I had one bridesmaid at my wedding, and it was my sister.
Two
oh no,
best
where
men?
he had two best men or groomsmen, and then one who was sort of over the phone, who sadly couldn't be with us at the time.
Yeah.
I just had my sister because I was like, that'll fucking do.
Yeah, but you had loads of friends there.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So because I was there, so but yeah, so that I thought that was a little bit just too much of a convenience for a joke. It's I almost think sometimes like the writing of a joke should be like stitching. Like you shouldn't see it, but you should know the quality, sort of thing. And then a few issues with exposition as well. So I think we need more explanation of why doesn't he have many male friends, or why doesn't he have many friends, full stop. They do make a thing of him getting on better with women, but I don't really see any substantial amounts of female friends in there. There's sort of people he works with who he gets on with, and that's fine, he gets on with them. But it's almost like they need to show us him having some female friends, or having maybe you'd bring a character in there who was a female friend, and you do that storyline of, actually she can be his groomsman, that sort of thing. I thought that, so the fact of the matter is, I think we need to see more about why doesn't he have female friends. Is he always been uncomfortable around women? Is he just I think there needs more explanation in order to earn some of the jokes we get. And also the other thing is, he just seems to have some friends because they name some, and there's some, it seems to be like, so he actually does have friends. He doesn't appreciate the friends he does have. He basically has friends. He's like, but they're not a good enough friend to be my best man, or they're not a good enough friend to be my groomsman. It's a bit like, well,
he'd rather meet someone new than entertain the idea of any of those people.
Entertaining, or whatever. So a lot of that's just a bit by the numbers, and because it's a bit by the numbers, it's sort of a bit. There's just a few either inconveniences or conveniences or holes or whatever where it either hasn't earned the right to do them, or hasn't earned it with the laughs, or just I couldn't suspend that disbelief. I couldn't go, oh yeah, that's because of that. He could just have his dad and his brother. Okay, so we'll move on to talking about the critical reception then. I haven't seen the critical reception because I didn't pick it, and that is the format of the podcast that we've done quite a lot of episodes of, isn't it? I think this probably did fine. I don't think it did amazing. I think this might be one of sort of audience scoring it a bit higher than the critics. I don't think we're talking like a massive gulf. I'm going to say audience are giving this 7s and critics are giving this sort of middle 5s. So I think we're averaging out at a high 6, low 7.
Okay.
And box office wise, I seem to remember it doing fine.
Okay. Well, prepare to be surprised, Josh.
Oh.
A little bit, right? So,
100%.
at the time of recording, over on IMDb, I Love You Man gets a 7.
Okay.
Then over on Rotten Tomatoes, the audience give it 74%.
Okay.
And then the critics give it 83%.
Wow. So
I
that's...
was surprised by that, Chris.
That's just over. So if you round that down, that's 75% or 7.5 out of 10.
Okay. And then box office wise, yeah, so it had a budget of about $40 million and it made around 92 million. So
fine.
double. So it doubled and then some.
Yeah. That's about
so
standard for a film like this, isn't it?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's underseen. I think you could argue that it doesn't quite hold up as much as other films that come up around this time. Like you said, like 40-Year-Old Virgin is almost like enshrined in history and is like so quotable. Things like Anchorman as well. Like is really
forgetting Sarah Marshall with the obvious exception of one of the actors, but yeah,
just like really in the zeitgeist and stuff, and like really still quite prominent. This I feel like a little bit more under the radar in some regard, especially with modern audiences and going back to look at it. In terms of that critical reception, probably appropriately rated, I reckon. If it's
you'd say appropriately rated,
if it's averaging about 75, I think that's about appropriate for me.
I'd say it's probably ever so slightly overrated, but only it's not it's not a travesty or anything like that. So I'd be happy to say let's say it's appropriately rated then. So there we go then. I Love You Man, appropriately rated and appropriately seen. Not underseen, appropriately rated. So yes, there we go. Well, Alice, here we are then. Here we are. So we will be back next week. If you haven't already seen from our social media, the wonderful Jamie Allerton, a comedian who's been on the pod before, will be coming on to fill in for Alice until she comes back. So the first episode, everyone else said no, but no, Jamie will be coming on. He's brilliant. He will come on and fill in Alice's massive shoes until she's good and ready to come back.
I have actually got massive feet as well.
Feet,
so I've got massive feet, but I've got size 8 feet and I'm 5'4". I'm 5'4", Josh. It's
that's the same size feet as me.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, I've got average size feet. Which don't look into that. Jamie will be coming on board from next week. We're very excited to see how that goes. He's a brilliant comedian. Do check him out. I won't spoil the film choices for you because I won't. But he'll be on board from next week until Alice is bloody good and ready to come back. Alice, then. So this is it.
This is it. The time has come. Say goodbye. Feels like ages ago when we did the 101 Dalmatians episode, which is where everything come out. So I was 20 weeks pregnant then.
Yeah, and now
I'm 38. Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
That's wild, eh?
Feeling all right?
You know what? It's been like... Here's a little something for anyone out there who's thinking about getting pregnant, right? Or who's approaching this time in their life, okay? Obviously, I am thrilled that it's happening. And I'm so pleased that it was able to happen. You know, we were trying for a little bit. It was a bit touch and go there. It was like, oh God, is this going to happen for us? It was all very stressful, blah, blah, blah. So I'm obviously so grateful and so happy that it is all happening. But the whole thing has been a hell of a lot more painful and a hell of a lot more uncomfortable than I could have possibly prepared for. So if you are someone who's thinking about getting pregnant soon, just brace yourself. Brace yourself, because it might be fine. I've spoken to a lot of pregnant women. Some were absolutely fine, no symptoms whatsoever. They're glowing, they're beautiful, they're flying through it. You can barely tell they're pregnant. Oh, you've got such a tiny bump and all this. And then there's heifers like me who've just been like, oh my God, this is the worst thing ever. So just whatever comes your way, just accept it. Try not to be too surprised and just don't freak out at every little niggle and every pain, because there could be many. But yeah, no one prepares you, Josh, I think, for just how traumatizing on the body it's going to be.
And you're talking about the pregnancy here, not the podcast.
No.
And has doing the podcast helped or made it worse?
Oh no, definitely helped. Definitely helped. Given me a focus, given me something to think about. And
I thought it's worth your performance has not dipped.
Oh, that is so good to know. Thank you. Thank you. That's good to know because I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure if I'd got like baby brain and stuff and suddenly I just wasn't making any sense. It's like, Alice,
I'll just cut it out.
Yeah, that's true. That's the beauty of editing.
And you'll, of course, be back recording with us as soon as you're ready.
Yeah, soon as I reckon, soon as I've got like the mental capacity,
Couple of days
to be able to concentrate on something.
couple of days, and then we can maybe give you a week, something like that, and then
babies are easy, right? I've heard this.
I've
They're
heard
easy.
nothing but a piece of cake.
All they do
Loads
is
of
sleep and eat.
Yeah. Yes. So obviously Alice will be back whenever she's ready. And we look forward to her coming back. All that remains to be said is, of course, good luck from all of us here. Just films on that. The listeners can't say it, but I'll say it for them, or I'm hoping that they're thinking it. Best of luck. We can't wait to have you back, but obviously, more importantly, hope all goes well. And I'm sure that it will.
Thank you.
And yes, I'll be back next week with Jamie. In the meantime, you know where all the social medias and the Patreon and all that. I'm not going to do that. All I'm, going to finish by saying, best of luck, Alice. Can't wait to have you back, but you'll be a brilliant mom.
Oh, that's a lot of pressure. That's a lot of pressure, there, Josh.
But
I'm going for adequate. I'm aiming for adequate.
You'll be an I love you man of a
yeah, that's good enough.
Appropriately rated mother.
Appropriately rated.
I'll see you next week. Alice Woe. It's goodbye from me. Cheerio.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Even when we're on a budget, we still deserve nice things. Quince is a place to scoop up stunning high-end goods for 50 to 80% less than similar brands. They have buttery soft cashmere sweaters starting at $50, luxurious Italian leather bags, and so much more. Plus, Quince only works with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing. Get the high-end goods you'll love without the high price tag with Quince. Go to quince.com/style for free shipping and 365-day returns.